recorded thing, but your image and voice may be recorded. And we'll start with, do we have any minutes?
Yes, they are posted.
Okay, so, does anybody have any comments on the minutes? Or can I get a motion to approve?
I wasn't here, so.
Motion approved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, do we have an Ask About Regional Consortium update?
No.
Nope.
Next meeting is January, I wrote it down, 13th.
CPA update.
Yep.
We're meeting a lot.
Oh, you're meeting a lot, yes, I know.
You are familiar. We are, cycle-wise, we're in the, it is now closed for proposals for funding. We are reviewing requests for funding for May. As a trust, we did not put anything in, which is fine. We'll get to see Lisa's smiling face anyway, looks like, several times potentially.
Another project, yeah.
Another, because you have nothing else to do other than shepherd these projects. But once, potentially for next May, we can look at sort of setting up the regular pull down of fund, now that we'll be able to report potentially at that point on a, successful movement on this property and see where we are financially, potentially with also the down payment program.
The one thing that I need to check on, or you need to check on, is Metro West, we had an article, and I cannot remember that runs out, to pay them.
Mhm.
And I think that we could use CPA funds for that as an administrative, because they administrate our SHI and all of that nonsense for us. But we kind of need to check and see.
Separate, this is not the Josefa money.
No.
That's CMRPC.
That was CMRPC.
You're talking about.
I'm
well,
talking
this
about
is-
Metro West. The planning board set up an article before we started, I believe, which means it may be running out even as soon as May, and I probably should have had my eye on that, but didn't. So, yes, if you could find out and do the research on whether Metro West can be paid out of CPA funds as administration for us, since we no longer have the contract with CMRPC, other than for what Emily's doing for us.
Okay.
And I don't know, there may be enough be enough funds in the CMRPC article after this. I don't remember I need to look at what we have for funds, so, because we may be able to repurpose some of that also if this is kosher. But I don't know how much is left, or if
So
there's
we are
any left.
asking the general question about whether CPA funds, how much can we use CPA funds? And then the secondary question will be potentially, can we repurpose Josefa money?
If it still exists.
If it still exists.
Otherwise-
Or if Metro, and the status of the Metro West money.
Yeah, otherwise we need to set up an article. We probably don't have time to do it now,
But we could do
but
it
we
for,
could do it for
the
fall.
special, the fall special we
And
will be having.
We can potentially use other funds or whatever, but we need
Okay.
to sort out how to pay.
Clarity on use
Metro
of,
West.
first question, clarity of, on CPA funds. What scope and scale of how much we're talking about?
Those are the bill schedules that you sign all the time.
Okay, so we're not talking.
It's not a ton of money,
Okay,
no.
the quarterly ones?
The quarterly ones, yeah.
Okay.
I can go back and look at those or send those over to you, but it's not prohibitive. And Tim Wheeler is the one who originally set this up,
Yeah.
so he should be familiar with
We meet
this.
again on the 16th, so I will
Awesome.
ask.
Is
And-
Tim coming in tonight?
He is coming in tonight. I
Is
suppose
that
we could
something
ask
Oh,
him
we
to
can
come
just
tonight,
ask him
but I
here.
didn't I put on the agenda, he's here for a specific reason, but maybe we could throw
Or
that
at
in
least
there too.
for us to continue discussing on the 16th if he needs to do research
Yeah,
on that. He also may know off the top of his head.
yeah. assuming since we were paying Jasifa to do the SHI and all of that, which she didn't end up doing, and Metro West does, and they're sort of our bounce off, that is probably fine, but we need to know for sure. Okay. Emily is here, so we will let you do your
Sure.
thing while.
Sure. Okay, so I wasn't at the last meeting, but I know you had gone over some of the materials I had sent, just like the program guidelines that I had typed up based on the kind of first like kickoff conversation. So I made some updates to that, but I don't think there was too much. But if you've like kind of sat on it a little bit more and have some more like edits or want me to incorporate some more things, I'm happy to do so. So I'll just hand out.
And we had the one where we had looked at the options.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that I
So
had
that
sent you.
was the. Yeah, the first magic requirements. So I had like the 2 optional texts, and then you had sent me just a.
Sort of in the middle.
In the middle, yes.
In the middle option.
Yeah, so I incorporated that in, and then I just added a section on number 5 called application process. It's just a short description of telling folks what they will need to do to kind of move forward with the program. And then I drafted up an application checklist and like application. So I'll also pass these around. So we could take a look at that. It was just based on a few examples that I had looked at, so I'm just curious. So basically it's kind of 2 steps that are outlined. So the first is to that the applicant would have to submit their eligibility information. So that includes just if you go down to like page, what is it? Yeah, page 3, that's the beginning of like the actual like application that they would have to fill out. And then there's a number of like attachments they would have to submit as well. So a lot of, tax returns, pay stubs, bank statements, things like that to kind of prove their income. A lot of this stuff was really the same across the applications that I looked at. The only like differences I would see is like the amount of time that they're asking for. So do you want just the most recent year's tax returns? Do you want the last 2 years, the last 3 years? So I don't know if you want to kind of make a decision around that. In terms of like monthly statements from savings accounts, I put 6 months here, but it could be just, the past 30 days or 2 months, things like that. So that was just something that I can update. Let's see here.
Do we know if there are like industry standards or what? I mean,
It's kind of town by town, I would say. I can do a little bit more digging into that, but that was just kind of what I found.
Well, how do we show that they qualify as a first-time home buyer? Like, we have our different degrees of what we consider to be a first-time home buyer, but what's qualifying that? And could this be a way to do that with tax returns, or I don't know. So we have our qualification of, the eligibility, no ownership, like how are we gonna show that? And I'm just tying that in here because is this a way to do that? Through tax returns, principal residence listed on that? Not sure, hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah.
How is that typically done in the 40B
yeah, I
process?
mean, I would assume that they're.
I think it's the 3 most recent tax years.
Yeah.
For the standard 40B application is the
Yeah.
3, and they're just gonna
I-
look at whatever that primary residence is there.
Yeah.
And obviously if they're taking a
looks like
mortgage
So I think
tax credit or something like that,
right.
that's
a way to do that is to
Uh-huh.
ask for the 3 consecutive past
Good
prior
point.
years of,
I feel like looking at this, I feel like that may be part of the pre-approval process. There's one on here that says if you owned a home within the past 3 years, but it was sold due to divorce, so that covers that case. there's a check off here, and mortgage pre-approval letter from eligible mortgage lender that meets first mortgage requirements listed in the policy guidelines. So
So the mortgage lender is actually doing that check.
I feel like they may be doing that check, but I mean, we could certainly verify that, but that, I get,
Which check? I'm
the,
sorry,
the
I'm
first
lost on
time,
that.
it's mortgage pre-approval letter from eligible mortgage lender that meets first mortgage requirements listed in the policy
First
guidelines.
mortgage
First mortgage.
isn't first-time home buyer mortgage. First mortgage means there's one mortgage on the property, they're first in line.
Okay.
Second mortgage is another mortgage behind that mortgage. So I'm not sure if that's
Not sure if
actually
that's
the same
actually-
language.
Okay,
I believe that for the 40B,
I'm thinking
I
the
have to
income-
turn in
the-
3 tax years.
Yeah,
That's how I believe
Oh,
they.
I'm
Check
thinking,
that's how
so
they
that's a good way to maybe handle both of those.
And it's, yeah.
And if we were to get in a tie situation somewhere, you know, well, go back another year. I don't know. That would be nice, right?
yeah, well, if we had
Had
two
that much
applicants,
interest.
we could absolutely
absolutely
give
Have
two.
enough money.
You're
Like,
right.
I'd be
We don't-
excited to give two in
That
a
would be
year.
like,
I don't think
Cause
it's
my
a-
guess is we're gonna give one every 5, but,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and on the second to last page of the checklist, there's like a certification section, so that you all can also check off and, you know, sign that either you have not owned property in the last 3 years, or you're a single parent and only own property with a spouse, or you're 55 years or older.
Is that,
So there's no like documents, I guess, that we're asking to go with that, but
does that 55 and older make the house piece, like the ownership not count? Like if I,
Why are we,
55,
yeah,
can
what is?
I buy that, can I buy a house even though I own the house that I own now?
well, it still has to be your primary residence.
Right, if I sell this house.
Yes.
And then go apply,
The income, I don't know if it's, the income requirements change, like the income and asset requirements are different.
right, that's,
Sorry, I'm not, I don't know what the question is.
The question is the ownership piece not held to a person who is 55 years and older? This
Not,
here.
not owned a home within the past 3
Yes,
years.
that, the ownership
That-
piece, that
I'm
whole.
just checking what we have for first-time homebuyer status, what we defined as.
Because the way it was just spoken sounded like either or, not, that's, I don't know, I just wanted to clarify.
I suppose we could check all of the boxes, right?
Right, yeah.
To make that clear. Check, all
Have to
boxes
check
that
at least
apply.
one, yeah, check.
Should all apply? Because I guess they could be all 3. Right. Well, it does, well, 1 and 2 are kind of, not really, if it was beyond 3 years ago, it would still be true, right?
But the 3 years applies to both of those things technically, right?
what,
So the first thing,
No.
we have only not owned real property in time in the last
last
3
3
years. And I am a single parent and or displaced homemaker and have only owned with a spouse.
that's.
I don't think
that's-
there's a
In
3-year.
the past 3 years,
I
I have
don't
only owned with a spouse.
I don't think the 3-year, if we go back and read that, I don't think it had a 3-year window on that one because it's a displaced homemaker.
Well, right, but if you qualify, I mean, if you qualify under one.
Do I have to qualify under the other one? That's.
Right,
that-
if I've been divorced for 5 years.
Right.
And
Then it doesn't, then it shouldn't matter,
then it shouldn't matter,
Right.
right? That's
that piece
the
doesn't
thing.
go.
Right,
that
there
piece-
isn't like a timeline
Right,
on that,
so it doesn't seem like it has to be all, it has one or the other.
yeah, I'm still.
but it could be all.
At least one borrower versus at least one like are we the applicant needs to be 55 or over.
Well, everyone would
Question?
apply for the loan, everyone would apply for this program, so at least one of the applicants.
Applicants, we're talking
Need-
about the applicants for this program, not, does everyone who's on the loan has to come through, also has to be on this application?
Well, if you're
Would you
doing
say everyone on the
a
loan?
mortgage together,
Everyone in the house has to be, like, on it, on the application, every household member living there.
Right.
And then,
Is there
in
room
terms
for
of
that?
the loan,
These list all individuals who occupy the home regardless of age.
Mm-hmm. And maybe only one adult is applying for the mortgage? Is that what we're?
well, that
How
wouldn't
does that-
necessarily be the case though, because if it's an income requirement that they're coming in under, or a first time, that could be a couple, that could be anybody. So it's not necessarily a single,
Right, but if there's,
so if it's like, let's use an example. If there's, say it's like an individual and their parent and a child.
3 generations.
3 generations, yep, and the primary and the middle generation is the one who is like, so the primary, the parent, so like a grandparent or whatever, and then the child who's under 18, they're all gonna be on the application.
Hmm.
But the primary, they're not gonna put the child and may not have to put the parent on the loan, right? That's kind of what we're getting to is who's, in some cases they might, but I don't think the parent has to be on the loan as well.
just because they
No.
live there.
Right.
If they're not applying for ownership,
Right,
then it doesn't matter who else lives there, as long as the applicant here lives there and
Right.
it's their primary.
but on the application, we would still look at, they would be a 3-person household and they would have to include the income
Mm-hmm.
From all of those
from
people.
all of the people, right?
In the child labor,
Yeah.
with your 8-year-old.
They do.
So I guess the
Right.
question, all right, so the question then is, at least one borrower is over 55 years old.
Mm-hmm. But why does age matter
yeah.
here?
Because
we can
the
also just take that
assets,
I'm still
because of the
disagreeing with where that's
assets
driven.
Requirements are
Right.
different.
requirements.
Yeah.
The assets
It
is the
matters
only thing.
because you can be eligible if you have, if
You
you're
can have
over
retirement.
55
Oh, yeah,
and you
so-
have 70,
The 401k.
Whatever
or
it
the-
was.
Yeah, it was like
you're,
375.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that's why it matters.
Awesome.
But, so at least one. It doesn't have to be 2, but one would qualify it if that's who's borrowing. If they're not
So-
borrowing, it's irrelevant, but they still need to,
So this is the borrow, so, right, clarification on borrower and applicant.
Right, well,
Borrower, applicant, resident for this third point,
mm,
right? Making sure,
Yeah, it's consistent.
so in the case that you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
that parent isn't a the
Grandparent,
grandparent isn't a borrower, right?
right,
Right.
they would be a household
Household
member.
So that 55 wouldn't count, technically,
Right.
right, I'm thinking.
So
out loud.
then,
So
yeah.
that's where I'm, like, I think we're talking about the borrower that is applying for this loan. And we have spaces for co-borrowers, so at least anybody who signs this as a borrower has, to check off that box has to be 55.
Right.
So,
and if you're a borrower, you have to be an applicant on here. You can't
Yes.
have a cosigner, right? So I think
right.
clarification of that, right? Because really it's any applicant has to be 55 or older. You have to be applicant 1 or applicant 2, right?
if you have that level of assets.
If you have that
Otherwise,
asset.
it's,
Right.
it doesn't, so that caveat,
that one needs to be clarified a little,
Mm.
I think, because the way it sits there, it's like you have to be one of these things, not just, maybe I'm reading it wrong.
well,
Right.
Checking the box.
And that is not listed like the age stuff
Yeah.
is not listed anywhere under applicant eligibility.
That's because, yeah, I don't know.
And we almost have to combine the,
To make sure
Maybe
everything,
that's a
all of
separate
the.
question.
And I know with like 40B, it depends on the program and the situation that age comes into play.
right,
So like,
I think we wanna look at that,
yeah,
cause it either should sit as a separate question or checkbox outside of the other two, or it should be like, you know, these are the qualifications. You're either a first-time homebuyer or you have just gotten a divorce, kind of thing.
I agree.
Because I'm not sure, right, because the age is just for asset limits. It looks like from this, that's
Let's look at the first
2-4,
one.
top of page 3 is where I found the only mention of over 55 years of age. So I think it is a different, it's a different,
so are we more of a first-time home buyer or an affordable down payment goal? Are we more geared towards first-time, like, because,
We
like,
talked
in the
about, we
50
talked about asset limits in the program.
55 and over, they probably have or potentially have owned homes, so they can't check, and maybe they're not a homemaker with a child at home anymore either. So they may not be either of those, so then where does that put that? Are they not qualified?
Well, if they've owned a home,
It would have to not have been in the last 3 years,
yeah,
and then they qualify.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because we are, I mean, we are,
Follow that.
I
it
know.
is first
Okay.
time, there has to be that,
Yeah,
we have, that's what the program's designed around, so we have to stick with that, I think.
okay. So the 55 is just if they're 55, they can't have more
More
than
than
those
75.
assets. They still can't have owned property in the last 3 years.
although it's weird, the value.
Unless they're divorcing
Yeah,
and they're a
displaced
displaced homemaker, but then they're not, a displaced homemaker definition is someone who hasn't worked, right? So then, would they have those assets? Probably not.
Well, if they're splitting a house, they may have those assets.
True.
So I think what we've just said.
I forgot.
I have
Just
no idea.
said that the only thing age matters for is looking at your assets.
Exactly.
You still
Yes.
have to fall
Fall on the
into
other
the first-time
2.
home buyer bucket
Mm-hmm.
by either the actual ownership or the divorce/displaced homemaker thing. Right.
So you're right, separating this out would work.
Mhm.
And just say if 55 or older.
Yeah, incorporated into the assets. I mean, the assets, like chart is right above it, so is there a way to incorporate that somehow into that chart?
So we are asking them to certify.
Could just sit right underneath the charts,
Yeah.
like a little, check here
You
if you're
could-
55 or older.
Please check all boxes that apply.
Under certification?
Yeah.
I guess that's fine.
I guess instead of on the application, would we want their full name and age rather than their date of birth? That way you look at it and you're like,
But the
That's-
age, I mean, technically if they are applying when they're 54, but they're gonna turn 50, like, without, like, when
Got it.
when did they actually turn,
okay,
right?
yeah,
You know,
And when would
it'll
they
take,
apply?
it'll take months, right, for this process.
right.
Okay, I mean, we can.
But we just have it on, like, if they put their age rather than date of birth on a quick look, they're just gonna say, okay, so one person's
I think
55. If they're 54 and they're applying,
you typically
be
need date of birth to verify
Everything.
individual.
yeah,
You need to have the birthday.
DOB.
yeah. So we remove on certification on page 6, at least one borrower is over 55. Totally get rid of that.
Yep.
Okay.
Are we gonna get rid of it, or are we just gonna say, please check all boxes that
I
apply?
think we need to get rid of it.
I
Get
think,
rid of it?
yeah, because people
Okay.
look at it and they're like, oh, do I have to be 55?
And then-
Okay.
Or I'm 55, I qualify, but I still own, I own
Right.
a house, right?
It's- yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other things that would be applicable for somebody would be if they don't have a principal residence affixed to a permanent foundation.
We have not, yeah, that's not covered here.
Like, shouldn't that be on there too? Basically, applicant eligibility should match
Yes.
the check boxes.
Right, if you own something, if you own something but it's non-compliant.
Right,
Or
so-
not on a foundation.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Like-
Yes.
do you see,
Yeah.
like, the certification thing
Mhm.
should match
Yeah,
each of
there's-
these bullets under 2.1.
Yeah.
I'll make a note to kind of update that to align.
Yeah, so 2.1 and certification checkboxes should match.
On page 7, we're asking for signatures from borrower and co-borrower rather than applicant 1 and applicant 2. That language should be
Yeah, we should
consistent.
make that consistent. Should we just stick with borrowers then?
I like
Definitely.
applicant, I think.
Yeah.
I think they're different
honestly,
things.
They are.
They're
They're different
borrowers,
things.
They're different
not-
things.
The mortgage is a borrower, this
Yes.
is our application.
Our application, yeah, there.
This is technically
I
a
mean-
mortgage.
Well, there can't
It
be
is.
co-borrowers.
It is,
It is technically a mortgage and,
But-
it gets
But we don't
paid.
wanna, in general usage, certainly, it's just gonna be confusing if we have all of these borrowers running around, honestly, right? Just in terms of, so we're sure we're carving out what we're talking about.
so
I
are
think-
the members in the
think it should be-
household applicants?
It only
Or-
says, like,
No.
on page
I think
3,
okay.
it says applicant 1 name, applicant 2 name.
All right.
I actually think it should be borrower.
I think this might be a question for when we get to legal.
What we should call them,
Hmm?
what
What
we
they
should
technically
call,
are.
what the.
I think that is probably, if that language is not appropriate, when we are done with this, before we implement this program, this has to go through legal review. So I would say that language things like that would be something that legal would,
They just have to
Pick up
match, ultimately.
yeah.
From my point of view, that's the
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
that's
but if there
thing
is,
number 1.
if
But
there
you're
is
right,
some
it's a
legal borrow means something other than applicant legally, then that is something that our counsel would tell us about, I believe. I don't know that it's worth us trying to figure that out.
I guess it, and then
Because
they'll
I-
back it,
and
like,
then
oh, you can't say
It
that.
comes back and they say, yeah, exactly,
This is what
that
this is.
this is what that needs to be. So in that case, I would say they
Leave
will
it as
catch, they
is.
will catch that, or fix it if it needs to be fixed.
So do we wanna change it just to be consistent and then they'll change it?
Yeah, whatever makes sense with other, yeah, cause you do have applicant 1, applicant 2 here, so, yeah, make them the same and then
I'll just make
they
them all
may
borrower and
change
then,
to something else later and.
That's
and
also on
Pretty
page 5.
much when legal comes back,
In that table,
and
there's
gives-
also the applicant 1, applicant 2.
yeah, but yeah, when legal sends things back and they give recommendations, I go, yes, thank you.
Okay, so, what is this? In step 1, there's the list of employed, self-employed, unemployed, social security, and what you have to provide. It does not say on that list that they have to have a signed notarized statement describing the current situation, which is said on page 5 at the description there.
yeah, I wasn't sure if that's something we wanted included. That felt like a fair ask if someone's been recently unemployed and they have to get a notary signing.
That feels.
It feels a
if you're
little-
on if you're on unemployment, like, and you've
Yeah.
already reported that,
Yeah,
you know,
it feels really
that
excessive.
feels yeah. I don't feel like we need that. I don't know what other people think.
I missed the preface of that.
So on page 5, at the
Okay.
top under income and asset information,
Right,
it says any household member over 18 must provide a signed notarized statement describing the current situation if not working. So there's the question of, do we want to make somebody who's unemployed do that when they already have to provide 2 most recent months of checks and a letter stating start date and assistance that they are receiving?
maybe they're not getting anything.
Yeah, what if they run out?
I mean,
I mean, I don't
Maybe
know how
they
they're
have
gonna
zero
apply for a
income.
house, but
Well, if they have assets, right, if,
not
what are the
above
rules?
I think
75,000.
this is just to try to get all income reported, you know, like some sort of affidavit to say,
Mm-hmm.
this is my income, like, this is, even though they're not applying for the loan, they're in the household.
Those applied in household members. So the question is, number 1, do we want that notarized statement?
I think,
I think it's good to have in
think yes.
writing. So like if like a child is over the age of 18 and they're not working, they just like haven't found a job.
Not in school.
Or
Not
they're
in
in
school.
Do we need a notarized statement?
No,
Just like a
signed
couple
I would
sentences.
say yes, because when you, as a notary,
This
When you
is
do that,
a
you take an
financial
oath,
recordable document.
and it's,
Yeah.
you have you have certified and promised in front of somebody that this is an accurate statement. So yes, I'm gonna say yes.
Okay, then we need it on the list on step 1.
And who like, and maybe this is a stupid question, but who is going through this application and verifying it? You're doing all this. No. I'm like no.
That'll be Metro West.
Metro West.
Or whoever we partner with to manage the
Not
program.
us.
Not
is
us.
key.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I am
Yeah.
pointing to
So
external.
not-
Yeah.
not us.
Right, and the reason I ask is because, like, this already exists. Like, this application already exists. Like, right now we're looking at, this is great, but, like, this application with all these requirements and all the language, it's all correct, it exists. Like, I can pull it up. Like, I work for a company, SCP Housing, that's what they do.
Right.
And their application is all together and, you
Yeah.
know, we could ask them if we can use it. Or just, like, it's online.
We can just look at it and make sure we're not
Yeah.
missing anything, and
Uh-huh.
it would be great if we're consistent,
Yes.
that, you know, and not making people jump. I mean, we're already making them jump through a bunch of hoops, but at least they would be the same hoops
Yeah.
if they're attempting to access other resources.
Right. And the reason I say that is because, like, we're looking at, like even just the language, kind of, like, putting ourselves in circles if it's already done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
like,
you
this
did-
is this is
You
awesome.
did, Emily, you did
Yeah.
pull this.
Yeah, I pulled
From-
it from a few different examples, so I have.
But
like,
if you wanna send
more
her over the one
Andover.
that
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
familiar with,
Sure.
then maybe you could look at
Mhm.
those and,
Yes, I will
And-
email that to you.
because Lauren is familiar with that one, it might make
Yeah, and I'm
sense
like,
to-
just like the language and all the questions. If it already
Yeah, and then we know that's already passed legal review.
right. Uh-huh.
Nice.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean, because even when I was going through it, and I had 5 mortgages altogether, some of them I'm not sure really knew what was going on.
we don't want to be them.
I know we don't, but,
Yeah.
so,
That's why I'm saying Lauren is familiar with this one and works
Yes.
with this organization,
Yes,
so
I
we
filled
have
that one out.
we have a thumbs up on that.
So everyone in the household, all of that counts toward the total income.
Yes.
And so, back to the grandparent living in the household but not borrowing,
Their Social Security check counts,
and their assets.
but
and their assets,
they're not,
but they
But
can
they're
have up to
not-
375,000 of them.
they're not,
Applying.
is
for
they're
the
not
loan.
applying, and they're not being a borrower, so why would they go on this page at all?
Well, they wouldn't be able to go on the
Wait,
applicant
wait a
page, but they would.
minute.
The household composition has everybody on it, so they would be
But
there.
does it have the, it doesn't have the,
So we have to be
Activity
careful when it's being
unit,
qualified that we count the right number of people
household type,
for the
which
income
doesn't really
limit.
matter, but
It doesn't,
like, 'cause
we
know
aren't
exactly
requiring
what
them
they
to
own.
report the assets.
Yeah, we are. Well, page 4.
Just
I guess
make
it
it really
says
explicit.
employer source
To
of
qualify
income.
for each
Source
of
qualified
income.
person,
And
please answer
then,
the following questions.
On page 5,
So,
applicant 1, applicant 2, other household
to
members.
qualify as
So we have
displaced-
applicants and
displaced
non-applicants.
homemaker, please answer these questions. Are they
Did
an
you-
adult? Are they own?
Okay.
You know, so it's
Wow,
mo-
that's
it's
really clear.
it's very thorough. Mortgage qualifications, and then the income tables. Oops, sorry, very similar.
Okay. So why don't we table this?
Cool. Yeah.
We'll send you back with Lawrence,
Yeah.
and then we'll
That
revisit
sounds good.
Okay.
rather than
Just because I
spinning in
feel like
circles.
we're looking at this and kind of reinventing the wheel.
Mhm.
Like, you know, if it like, I feel like if we already have something out there.
Nope,
Yeah, do you have my
perfect.
email?
No.
Oh.
Or I probably do, but.
Might be
And
somewhere,
then-
but I'll just.
So we will, so what is the next step that's happening here?
That's
Lauren
it.
is going to.
Lauren is going to send the one she is familiar with to Emily. Emily is going to look at that and yes,
And then
and
so,
then we will
and in
revisit.
January, we will revisit that?
Mhm.
Okay, and that will be our regular meeting at the end of the month, so it's actually
We're
like,
gonna talk about that.
oh.
We're gonna talk about that.
Alrighty then.
We have a
And
lot
this
going
might
on.
be
I think we need to talk
then
about that.
Specific to.
This program
we have one
guideline
of those.
replaces the one you
Yeah,
gave
has
last
that
time, has that been,
Yeah,
I
it's
would
an
say,
updated version.
Yeah, not
Or
much
is this your
change, but
version?
also I would table this and make sure that this aligns with this
Correct, come
before
back to
we
this
spend
last.
any more on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can get these over to us beforehand,
Sure.
we can be ready for you.
Perfect, yeah.
As opposed
than-
to being all
I
over the
know, I
place
just
with
threw it at you.
parents reading material
We can be
and
ready
making
for you.
comments.
Perfect. Yeah, and then I'll talk
And-
to Connor too about drafting up the legal document or legal agreement that would be between the trust and Metro West.
Yeah, I think we're getting there. We're definitely making progress, so,
great.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Overall, yeah, we're almost there.
Much closer than the original thing we
Yes,
started with.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
All right. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
Think so. I mean, I had spoken with Metro West last week.
Okay, so you did get in touch with
Yeah,
them?
I did finally
Okay,
get in touch
good,
with them.
because I know that was did it
I
help that
know.
I made the
Yeah, that was
connection? Okay,
helpful.
good.
Yeah, so I followed up a couple more times and then got back to me. So
This is not what I look for in a partner, but go ahead.
Yeah. I think now that we're
Yeah,
all
and
kind
if
of
we were paying them
in
too,
talks,
it would be good. Yeah, it would be fine.
yeah. So yeah, they were just curious, like what their level of involvement would be, like kind of who would be cutting the checks, kind of questions like that. So questions that I didn't really have answers to at the time, but good to kind of get going on that. And I don't know if maybe like you and me and Elisa could like get on a call together or something, and maybe just talk through a few like potential avenues.
Yeah, because we had talked about some of that stuff when we were doing this before, and I
Yeah.
don't think any of that would change.
Okay.
We would be the ones cutting the check, so they didn't have to cut a check.
Yeah, that's kind of what
So
they were
we
worried
had-
about.
Yeah, we had, no, there would be no cutting of checks, they just need to do the screening, really.
Right. Yeah. That was my impression too. So. Okay, that sounds good. Yep. I think that was all my updates.
Awesome.
So for next meeting, I'll bring this in, the updated versions. I'll send it to you before. And then at what point do we bring in town council? Kind of like
When we have what we think are final documents,
perfect.
so we only have to pay them once, hopefully, yeah.
Love it. Yes. It's not cheap.
No, no.
Cool. Okay. Sounds good. I think that's all I have.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
similar.
How are you?
I'm good.
See, aren't I good? I said between 6:30 and 6:45, and there we are.
Perfect.
Whoa!
Oh, sure.
Yeah, the light was on when I came in, so clearly, who knows, I guess now we know
An hour
somebody
ago.
turned it on an hour ago.
All right, So Tim is here to talk to us about the bylaw update project and the areas that might be relevant to the trust.
So, a long time ago, we worked with the commission to secure a grant,
Commissions?
the Central Mass Regional Planning
Thank
Commission. They're everywhere. An EEA grant, and we received the grant, and the plan is to redo the zoning bylaw. Not all at once. We'll take some of it to town meeting, hopefully in May this year, and then we might do some at a fall town meeting. And some may go over into 27. I mean, it's, the last time we did it, a wholesale rewrite was in 96, so, things are out of compliance with state code and stuff like that, and some parts are more problematic than others. So initially, the commission has this, the state has a program called District Local Technical Assistance, DLTA, and Berlin got some money to do a zoning diagnostic. So the commission went through the zoning bylaw and identified weak spots with compliance and just missing pieces that we'd never dealt with in the past. And initially that was Jane Wyrick, and now it's been handed over to Ron Barron. And what is going to happen soon is that Ron will reach out to you folks, and he will list the sections of the bylaw that we'd like you to work on and help us with and help him with. And then he'll probably send along any comments that were made during the zoning diagnostic for those particular areas. So we'd highlight the problems that we foresaw from the beginning, and then some of it's not that complex. Some of it, like the inclusionary zoning bylaw, probably needs a total rewrite, and needs input from a variety of sources, from other, we can look at models from other parts of the state and stuff. So the parts that we were gonna ask for you to participate in the discussion were the senior residential development overlay district, which is responsible for Highland Ridge and Brook Lane. Did we do enough? Seems we've had others that were proposed, but we didn't support those. So there's those two senior overlay districts that got created out of the senior overlay zoning. And it may not need a lot of tweaking, but it's always good to look at it, particularly, it's not, I think we probably wrote it in probably about 20 years ago. So it needs refreshing probably. So that's one piece. And then the Attorney General has approved the ADU bylaw that we proposed at the town meeting. And there was one piece that they questioned and wanted us to delete, and that had to do with it had to do with parking. And what we said was you have to have one off-street parking space for an ADU. But because there's a line in the legislation that says that you can't require that if you're within a quarter of a mile or whatever from a transit system, and we didn't stipulate that, that piece got tossed. So we'll add that later, and we'll put in the extra language that says, that's that's an allowance.
With
if
the
you-
idea
right.
when Metro when
Right.
they run a commuter
the-
rail
when the
through
T comes,
Berlin.
right.
Okay, then that
I mean,
would
you
be
know,
protected.
it didn't, we didn't look at it closely
So you
because
just
it
have
didn't
to
apply.
add, unless you're within a quarter
Right,
mile of
yeah.
the non-existent.
So in the meantime, someone can build an ADU and not have any
Place to park.
place to park, which of course they're not gonna do, cause it would be foolish, and there's adequate space here in town, so. I guess there's 2 ADU applications that have come to the building inspector so far. and-
New builds or getting approval for things that
Uh,
already exist.
I'm not sure, I think one's a new build, I'm pretty certain, I'm not sure about the other one. The problem with ADUs, of course, is that we can't stipulate that they be affordable, so, you know, you get ADUs which are small A affordable, which is great, but they're not qualifying for big A affordable, so we'll get some extra units. I can't imagine we're gonna see a ton of units, but, you know, they'll trickle in over the years, and that's great, cause they'll be in that other subcategory that we miss, because we can't create housing when housing lots are $2.25 or $2.50 or whatever a piece, so.
And those, though they might be more affordable or not, and don't make our list, they play into our ratio though. So they increase the number of households.
Housing units, right.
And they decrease our
Yep.
affordable units percentage.
Right, so traditionally, we saw 10 or a dozen single-family housing units built a year. And then 40B came in, and between Riverbridge and the apartments and the 40B projects that we couldn't stop because we were below 10, you know, we accelerated the number of housing units significantly. But my suspicion is we're gonna drop back to the 15 or, you know, somewhere in that range again. Cause there isn't availability of land, for one thing, and the cost is so astronomical that I think it prohibits to some degree.
We'll be adding one soon,
And
a
the-
brand new one.
right, so, you know, if we can throw in a new unit every so often, that's good. A side note, Mark Rhodes has created 8 new lots on Randall, and he'll get a note from us soon that says he has to work with you folks to present his plan to create an affordable housing unit on that property. Now,
So it needs one for,
yeah,
Is it
if
one?
you exceed 5, 6 or more, 5 or more, 6.
I thought it was 7.
I guess if you have 6 or more, so when you create the 7th, you end up, and so you can build 2 market rate, and then I think if that's 30% of the total number of units you'd have, then I think the 3rd unit would have to qualify. Now, I mean, that's another discussion, that's the problem with inclusionary zoning, is that if the houses in the mix are $1.25 million, and you have to build something that's 75% at least of the square footage of the units that are average in the project, then the question is, do you end up with a house that's beyond someone's capacity to maintain? And, I mean, when it was $600,000 a house, and, you know, you could add 80% come in and pick up something, you might argue that somebody could probably handle that, but I think when they're $1.25 million, and yours is gonna be, you know, whatever, 80%, 100, I guess.
not helpful.
It just becomes, it's one of the things that's gonna have to be looked at with inclusionary zoning, and I think, you know, we might very well say to Mark, if you don't wanna proceed with your 3rd unit, and you wanna wait to town meeting and see if the formula works better for you, if we rewrite the inclusionary zoning section, come in with your proposal for your unit then, and tell us how you're gonna comply with the new reg.
You've done in lieu of before too, right? That's where some of those funds, no in lieu of?
There's no buyout.
No,
Okay.
we said, I mean, initially, we said, we want the unit in the project. And, you know, we still argued that that's what we want. Now, I mean, maybe the plan is, you say to someone, you don't have to build the affordable unit, but we want the lot. And we'll build the affordable unit. You know, you guys could work with Habitat, and you could, the house could be any size or description you want. It could be really an affordable unit for somebody at 60% or whatever. So it may very well be that rather than saying you have to build the unit, you have to give us the land, which is substantial. I mean, if it's
Yeah.
2.25 or
If it's
250,
like, we could
Yeah.
do a proper duplex, we could, I mean,
Yeah.
we'd have some
flexibility.
flexibility in
Yeah.
what we did with it.
And then you integrate those units into the neighborhoods that are being created instead of isolating them in, you know, parts of town where you can only pick up a piece of land that's of no value but to anybody else.
Odd-shaped half an acre,
Yeah.
that, yeah.
So anyway, I mean, we can explore that, and I think that's one of the things that we wanna have you work on with Ron. So, in-law apartments, accessory apartments, and the ADUs will be part of the discussion with Ron. We have a multifamily dwelling district, but it doesn't exist in town. There's no land.
Exists in some other town?
There's no land it's a district, but there's no land that's
Purple
designated.
color coding,
Right.
there's nowhere on the map.
So if you look
Okay.
at the zoning map, it says multifamily dwelling, but there's no plot of land that's dedicated to that. So, you know, the overlay, obviously, for Riverbridge created multifamily dwellings, and there's a sizable number, but it's a question of, you know, what do we wanna do with that? So, that's a section. Trailers, we don't allow, and that's a housing piece
Yeah.
that we wanna look at.
What are the smaller ones too? We had talked about, like, I'm having trouble with the
Tiny homes.
Right.
I mean, those
Tiny
are
homes.
trail.
There you go.
Anything, the insurance company will tell you, anything without a full foundation,
Well,
it's a trailer,
Right,
period.
yeah. And then the inclusionary housing. So those are the pieces. Some will take more lifting than others. But it's obvious to us on the planning board that the discussion ought to be driven to a large degree by what you and Ron feel is appropriate.
Do you have, is the list prioritized at all, what you wanna attack first, or?
So, senior residential development, and inclusionary zoning, we gave a high priority to.
Okay.
And then,
So there's 5 or 4? Inclusionary zoning is its own, so 5?
There's kind of
in-
five.
it's really
and
inclusionary
trailer,
zone and
yeah.
senior residential development, the in-law accessory and ADU apartment issue.
Is that one altogether?
Yeah, I mean, you could look at those collectively, I would think they all
Yeah.
sort of interchange. What we did was we placed ADUs into the bylaw as a separate entity and left all the language for in-law and accessory apartments and detached accessories intact.
Those are all, that all
Potentially we should-
becomes one then? Is that the
So,
goal, or?
I think the notion is what works best. Right now, we require a special permit even for an in-law apartment, which, I mean, I wasn't too keen on that, but that's what we did. And, that, you know, we can look at that again, because you've got by right ADUs.
Yeah.
So why
but-
wouldn't you
but
just
it's-
build an ADU rather
Right.
than an in-law apartment
Right,
and
so-
stick your in-law in there?
So,
Right.
I mean, there's
right,
nothing saying you
there's
can't.
there's no point in having these other pieces if ADUs substitute and, you know.
If you can do the same thing
By
under
right,
the ADU
right.
by right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but there may be there may be some reason to add language that speaks to in-law and accessory and detached accessory, that sort of complements ADU somehow and still ends up being by right. I'm not sure, I haven't looked at it closely enough, but I think we need to evaluate that whole package.
I would think, I mean, the not by right, having an approval process does potentially allow for things that do not technically qualify via the square footage
Yep.
or, you know, when we get our subway line, you know, if they
Right.
want that parking space or whatever,
Right.
right?
Because, yeah, if you exceed 900 square feet for the apartment or the accessory or whatever, then you can't qualify for the ADU
Yeah.
by right.
Is there a limit
Do-
on the in-law apartment? What is the limit?
In terms of square
Size?
footage?
Yeah, square
30,
footage.
I think we'd say 35% of the total square footage.
Okay, so it could
But
be
then
quite large, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and then, I mean, if you've got a 3,000 square foot house, you know, bang, you know, you're at 1,000 anyway, which would exceed the 900 for the ADUs. The other thing is that people can add on to a structure. I'm trying to remember what we've done. It seems as though you can take an existing structure, say that you're adding on to it, and then the 35% comes out of the total square footage.
Not from the original square footage.
Yeah, so it's not like, you know, you can add an apartment, but it can only be 35% of the 1,500 that you started with, so it's only, you know, whatever. So instead, you can add 1,000 and you've got 2,500 now and you can take, so, this,
There's a loophole.
There's some things to clean up.
yeah, I mean,
So the ADU space is, in addition, it's not carving out a part of the existing dwelling? Is that?
It can
No,
only be 900 square
it
feet,
can,
period.
yeah, it can
the
be
end.
900. But I don't think you can't, well, there may be some language, I can't remember if there's language that stipulates that the ADU can only be a percentage of the total structure. But anyway, that's all the fun stuff. I mean, it's, I think layering on and making it one comprehensive piece rather than separate pieces is gonna be much easier for people to evaluate when they come in and try to decide what they wanna do. I mean, some people may say, geez, all I was thinking was 1,100, I'll live with 9 and I won't have to bother with any special permit. But then they may say, ooh, I don't want 900, I want 11.
I mean, was the in-law situation ever really governed?
So now, when they're issued, the building inspector's department is monitoring, just like it is with, what do we call them? Anyway, they're monitoring them, and so they have to renew every, I think it's 5 years. And as a result, people are gonna begin to be tracked, which allows, I mean, initially it was important because an in-law apartment, you had to be by blood related and that sort of thing, and then you could transition into an accessory apartment if you'd had an in-law apartment for X number of years, and, you know, all that can disappear.
Can go.
So there's the apartment issue, the inclusionary zoning issue, the senior residential issue, and then the multi-family dwelling. And I think, I mean, you wanna look at duplexes, you know, do we wanna allow those, either by special permit or by right, cause I think there's big possibilities for that, to sort of reduce housing costs. And
There already are duplexes in the senior overlay then? Cause isn't Meadowbrook, aren't those duplexes?
they're condos. It's an overlay.
Okay, yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
so-
built
so-
into that senior
So
overlay?
you could argue they're duplexes. I think what we're talking about is the allowance of a duplex on an A&R lot that's not part of a comprehensive overlay.
Yeah.
So you could tuck them in, like you're saying. You know, a developer, if in the inclusionary zone and said, you know, you have to turn over one of the lots, then you'd say, aha, opportunity, and you create 2 affordable units with a duplex and opportunity, so he's gonna send you that breakdown,
Do you
pretty
have-
quickly. He's working on it this week, so I think we'll, cause the goal is, I think with the ADU, that apartment issue, I think is a higher priority than some of the other things we're working on, as is the inclusionary zoning one. So, those are probably the two that'll challenge everybody the most.
So are you looking at those two for Springtown meeting?
If we can, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if we can't, we can't. I mean, that's the thing, it's not like it's gonna kill us if we
Yeah.
don't,
I'm just trying to get a sense of the timing,
Yeah.
or the wished for timing.
yeah, essentially. We got 2.5 months before the warrant closes, so.
Oh my god.
So,
We just
is
did
this the
that.
kind of thing where we're gonna get an email from him
No.
and then trot off and do this, or would he
No,
come in and
he's gonna-
talk through it
yeah.
with us and
He'll-
we have
he'll-
a conversation and
yeah.
working session?
He'll play it out with you.
Okay, cool.
And there may be some other people at the commission that are particularly keen on housing that are familiar with what's going on in other places. And they may participate with him too. The other piece that we haven't addressed, and we've kicked down the road a number of times, is the whole cottage housing possibility. And, I mean, there's some good examples, and we've got people that would be happy to work with us. The commission's tried to develop some language for a cottage housing bylaw. And I think later down the road, that's one of the, there's a couple things like stormwater management and cottage housing and low impact development and things like that that aren't in our bylaw now that we thought, you know, it'd be good to include those going forward, so.
For the upcoming meeting?
Cottage housing would be, you know,
Down
the
when the rest of the stuff
maybe in
is
27 or
fixed,
something
right?
like that, cause it's,
Piece by piece.
it's raw, it's just start from scratch.
Is that a version of the other, what was it called before? It was an acronym or something.
I mean, our goal was to allow someone to take a parcel of land and create multiple housing units on it, throwing out, so it's sort of like 40B, but you end up not with a comprehensive permit or a LIP, you end up in a situation where they come in, the parcel is designated as a cottage housing overlay or whatever, and then they can proceed with, you know, smaller units and that compact development like Mill Run in Concord and, what's the other name?
So is it
Density.
Yeah.
Is it basically a cluster zoning by another name?
Yeah.
Yeah, but, you wouldn't, it's not cluster with mega houses, it's cluster with footprints
Tiny
that are,
houses, with
you
smaller
know,
houses.
it's bigger than ADUs. You know, the one in Concord, Riverwalk, Riverwalk is 10 units, I think, but it's on a small parcel. Similar to, Sawyer Hill LLC where, you know, center walkway, parking outside, kitchens facing each other, you know, living spaces, 2 floors, that sort of thing. But interesting little houses. The woman we talked to in Riverwalk said she'd bought hers when they first built it, probably 20 years ago. And we said, so, do you consider it affordable? And she said, well, for Concord, yes. I mean,
Right, I mean, that's always.
it's $800,000, she says now, but, you know, and it's 1,100 square
But you
feet.
live in Concord,
So
yeah.
with that density and increased number of households on much
Little
less
houses.
land, again, the ratio, so I think that is where we if for those types of things, I think we have to really figure out how to make those affordable, or
Yeah.
maybe only have those as affordable.
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
if you could work it out so you could get even half of them, let's say, so you got 50% that were affordable.
It would have to be a much higher affordable threshold, I think, my opinion.
I mean, we can
To
shoot
give
for the
that
moon.
kind of
and-
zoning
But you-
relief.
You also don't wanna block out, because part of that is getting the same demographic as 40B without all of the restrictions, correct?
Yeah.
Because those are so prohibitive.
Yeah.
So that it
That
doesn't always,
that middle
it
bit
doesn't
of the ladder,
always,
that workforce
they don't
housing
always meet that,
piece.
Yeah,
that lower income.
because that's what, I mean,
Threshold.
when you were talking earlier, how does someone fit into that pigeonhole of income and qualify? I mean, it's just so damn narrow,
The
right?
gap is huge.
It's a killer, which,
Yeah.
so then that's why we thought,
And-
maybe we can do something with this, workforce or cottage housing.
And definitely, I think we'd wanna pursue the affordable piece, but I think you also need to look at just community health.
Yeah, I mean, and like we've said, the need is there for the smaller affordable unit as well. So if some of your cottage housing units satisfy that niche, great.
Yeah.
But shoot for as much affordable,
I think
numbers.
that's exactly where we come into play.
Yeah.
I mean, to give that kind of zoning relief, I mean, isn't that, the seminars we attended, the biggest prohibitor of affordable housing is actually not zoning, but building requirements, but plays hand in hand with zoning.
Yeah.
So,
And the other piece, there's a regional housing and transportation study that I went to the presentation on. They did a draft sort of presentation, so I think they're finalizing that. I'll try to dig up the link for that. It ends up being a tool that you can use online. It's layers of information. So you'd click on Berlin and it would say,
Can't get there
It-
from
it-
here.
it looks- unfortunately not anymore, right? So it'll say, here's the mean income. Here's what you need to afford a unit in town. Here's what percentage of the population is unable to afford a housing unit. I mean, so it gives you a lot of that information, which at your fingertips. So, I'll get that link and send it, so you
that'd be
guys
great.
can play with
I'd
it.
like to put that up on the website, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot, I enjoyed it, I thought, and then, I thought you guys would enjoy
yeah,
it
that
too.
sounds very interesting.
Cause it's having information quickly that allows you to make an argument at town meeting for why this is important, that sort of stuff. So that's all I have.
Well, thank you.
What's up,
What's up?
with the mall? I know it's up for sale again.
It's gonna close next week?
Okay. So.
Next week? Or in
after
the next 10
Christmas?
days, I
Oh,
think.
so, okay, well, yeah, so, I mean,
Before Christmas, theoretically. I talked to one of the reps the other day, and so Solomon Pond is in Berlin and in Marlborough, of course. We created an overlay. The overlay said this is a permissible building area, this is permissible parking, and the rest has to be green. Penny's, Sears, and Macy's own their own paths.
Okay.
And Penny's I'd forgotten, but Penny's controls a significant amount of frontage on Donna Lynch. So they're in the driver's seat because the buyer is from Ohio and they've come to an agreement with the mall, but they're still working with Sears and Penny's and Macy's. So I imagine Penny's is saying, we're still here, we're functioning, we may not want to stay, but we control the frontage and a substantial amount of the parking against that frontage, so talk to us, So Sears, on the other hand, is closed and,
Has been.
but I think Sears is playing hardball too. I don't know as Sears has as much to stand on as Penny's does. Macy's had been saying, we're here, we're gonna stay open. they closed a bunch of stores, but they didn't close this one, and it wasn't on the list. So Macy's has indicated that, maybe we wanna stick around. And then the proponents, whose model is to come in, rip out the second floor, create 30-foot ceiling heights, reinforce the ceilings, and then bring in light industrial uses. So they gave examples of somebody with 30,000 square feet comes in and takes vans and retrofits them for handicap folks. And so they use 30,000 square feet of space in this Ohio mall that they redid. But the company is ICP, Industrial Commercial Properties LLC. So if you go online, ICP, Industrial Commercial Properties LLC, and they're out of Ohio, and you'll see the types of tenants they've got, and it's the A-list of, it's a ton of great tenants. So it's less footprint in terms of parking, potentially redo the permissible building area, and end up with, less traffic, less parking, higher paying jobs, and revenue stream for the town again. Now we talked, we've talked about housing there, but we kept coming up against this backlash, and Marlboro wasn't too keen on adding a lot of housing stock, and they're supplying the water and the septic. So I think we said, okay, we're not in bad shape in terms of our housing situation in general, so do we need to add another, because everybody we talked to said we need 400 apartments if we're gonna have housing on this site.
To make it.
And we said, boy, I don't know if we can go to town meeting and say, we want 400 apartments added on to the 200 at Riverbridge. And then we said, well, what about 150? And they said, nah, it ain't gonna fly, because the economics don't work. So we said, okay, take that off the table. We wanna go to town meeting and get this thing to pass, but it maybe may. The Marlboro City Council is gonna have to modify some of their zoning for the site. They redid all of Donald Lynch, and the use chart for all of Donald Lynch had uses that we would have found unacceptable for Berlin, like warehousing and stuff. And they said, well, we use the special permit process to eliminate those. And our experience with special permits is that if it says it's a use and it requires a special permit, it's a use that's requires a special permit. And you've gotta come up with good reasons to say no. And Marlboro's argument is we can just say no. And we thought, I don't think you can go to the court and say, we just didn't want it. It was a use that's allowed on the strip, but we didn't want it. And so I think we're arguing that there needs to be an overlay created again, rather than just changing the use chart, and adding a bunch of uses for that spot. But so hopefully, 2 months, 2 years, whatever, 2 or 3 years, there might be a rehab. I can't, they work pretty fast. I mean, one place, before they even finalized the sale, they went in and started painting the building outside and stuff like that, so. They're pretty progressive. They got, it's 45 million square feet that they control, or something like that.
Wow.
It's a huge amount of space. Mostly in the Midwest. This is their first venture in New England. So when they first met with us and they said, well, we'd like...
They're gonna have a wake-up call.
Yeah, they said, we were with Meredith Harris, the Economic Development Coordinator of Marlboro, and we were online with these guys from Ohio. And they said, so Meredith, we gave you the use chart with our comments, and we'd really like a number of these things to be by right. And we chuckled and said, welcome to New England and Massachusetts in particular, because they said you guys have been living in the prairie out there where, you know, every cornfield is wide open and who
They
cares?
should have gone to New
right?
Hampshire if they wanted
Yeah,
it by right.
live free or die. So, but they're gonna push for everything they can get away with, and we can push back. We laughed. I mean, it was a good conversation. We like them. I mean, when we first interviewed them, Thomas and I both thought, well, these guys would be fun to have, because you get that feeling that they're willing to play, you know, and negotiate, and they're flexible, and they have vision. So they said to Macy's, you want us to buy you out, reduce your footprint, and we'll put other retail in the store alongside of you, you know, and Macy's said, that might not work, but I think, you know, there still might be retail on the site. And you might end up with some, you know, well, you can have fast food restaurants now, and so that, I mean, you could see some restaurants in the front of Sears that would accommodate the 1.5 million people that go to the ice rinks each year, you know, so. That's what I know about that.
They might, as they get used to, as they learn their way around New England and Massachusetts in particular, they might become interested in workforce housing or
Yeah.
something like that, and there's potentially enough room on that site.
Yeah.
You know, so as a.
Yep.
Once they figure out that things are a little more expensive here,
Well,
they're gonna
you know,
have just slightly different issues.
Senni's wanted to have some sort of workforce housing component to their project at Riverbridge, but they couldn't figure out how to make it fly. But that's not a bad idea. We could certainly say to these guys, you know, look, if you wanted to build, you know, 20 or 30 workforce housing units in that back lot that's away from the street, talk to us. Yeah, that's not far-fetched at all.
Your name did come up earlier.
Already?
The Metro West contract, I know we have an article that goes through, I cannot remember when it goes through, I have to go check. But they are the ones who do our SHI now and that
Yep.
sort of thing. So is that CPA fundable in the same way that Jasifa was, their role? Because we're gonna have to do some sort of re-up on that at some point, and hopefully it's not up in May, which I'm concerned that it is. And I know you did that the first time, and you took it out of that other pot of money, I believe.
Right.
So, and that may be what we need to do again, but I'm wondering because
What do they get, 12?
it's not a ton.
I know, they talk 12, but it ends up being like 7 or 8 or something.
Yeah, quarterly.
Yeah.
So it's not a ton.
Depending
But
on
they,
what-
they do survey, like I said, they do the SHI. They also, anytime we have a question
Yeah.
about affordable housing, they're like, what's going on with our stock, if something's
Yeah.
being sold, they follow up and they follow up quickly, and
Yeah.
I think they are worth having on the line.
For sure. I mean, I think we sort of married them and then Central Mass at the same time, and it was clear we were getting more out of them than we were out of Central Mass. Because Central Mass was trying to invent what
They
already did. Ideally, Central Mass could support in some other ways that are creative. But, yeah, these guys, like you say, whenever I would call them, I think, whoa.
And they know our stock really well
Yeah.
at this point, and I don't want to lose that.
Well, and it's not like our stock is changing rapidly, so, yeah, having somebody that understands it and knows it, really great. The CPA question is interesting.
Yeah.
We can look at what some other communities are
Because we
doing.
sort of use them the way that we were using CMRPC, but I'm not sure if it's
Well,
exactly the same.
Maureen said to me that some communities seem to take the 10% and hire, you know, sort of an in-house housing coordinator.
Which would also work.
But you know, you get turnover and stuff, and you've got one person and they're gone, and so if that's the case, the argument seems to me, you can easily make the argument that buying a service is the same as buying the coordinator. So I'll look.
Okay.
May I be
Thank you.
dismissed?
You better run. What we think of something else.
It's always fun. I mean, you guys are great. I'm happy that the property changed and you've got an opportunity now, and, you know, I mean, that's the thing. You just, if you get chances to move forward on stuff, it's like the planning board. I mean, you go through cycles where you're just beating your head against the wall and you're thinking, oh, we're not making any progress, and then all of a sudden, something
Yeah.
opens up and you think,
I mean, we're gonna have both of these things, the down payment program and the Legion Hall.
yeah,
I think by end of year, certainly,
super.
we're gonna have them both.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah.
And having you to comment on how do we rewrite the inclusionary zone and how do we deal with the apartment stuff? I mean, makes the world so much more sane than trying to have a bunch of crazy planning board people try to figure out that. I mean, really, I mean, we've botched it up enough already. We don't need
It's
it.
our turn?
Yeah, well, no.
More, our fingerprints will be on it most recently, so they can
Different-
yell, we didn't do it."
Different kind of crazy.
Their
I mean, I
fault.
think you're gonna clean it up and you're gonna make it sensible for the 21st century, you know? I mean, this was stuff we wrote. I mean, some of these things are, I mean, I can remember well, we didn't have in-law apartments, we didn't have accessory or detached. I mean, that
And
must have
I
been back
think-
in the 90s anyway. It's gotta be 30 years.
The positive thing about doing this all comprehensively is I feel like a lot of times these things happen in a reactionary manner, and I think this allows an opportunity to go back and fix
Yeah.
what happened in a sort of reactionary manner.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Good night.
Thank
Keep
you.
it up. Have a good holiday.
You too.
Stay out of trouble. Haha.
All right.
And it wouldn't be a good holiday.
So, before we just briefly go over this and just chat about the RFP and what I've been doing with all of that, I think that, while this project is going on, we at least have to have the opportunity to have 2 meetings a month. There's too much that's gonna happen, hopefully too quickly, to have just one, because that will greatly extend our timeline on the project. So I wanted to make sure that you guys, if I set meetings for the second week of the month also, that works for everybody.
As long as
And
they're
we
on
can
Wednesday.
cancel them if there isn't anything, but if there are things to do, I would like to have that option to be able to keep the project moving forward. So the first one would be January 14th would be, because even like, I think if we wanna legit get the RFP going in January or February, we need to talk about it more intensively on the 14th rather than wait till the 28th, cause 28th you're almost out of January.
January, yeah, I'm for it.
I'm good.
Yes, you guys are
Okay.
alternate. Wait, I was checking on the
Yeah, it would be
CPA
2
meets every other Tuesday, and if we meet every other Wednesday, but they're not on the same week. So, that's good.
Are we meeting?
The 14th.
Our next
would be
meeting will be the
next one.
14th.
Well, the,
Second and fourth?
The second and fourth weeks.
so we're
yeah.
canceling the second December meeting.
We
Already canceled.
did.
Or
It
I
was
got the email of
It was
that.
the 24th, yeah. Are you signed up for the notifications
Yep,
on those?
I
Okay,
got
'cause
it, and I thought
did
it,
cancel it.
I got something that said.
Nobody wanted to meet on Christmas Eve. I don't know
I
why.
wasn't, I'm
Sorry,
not
I'd
doing
have to
anything.
miss.
What?
Right.
Just not doing
I don't know why.
I'm gonna show
That
up in
might
my
be my
Christmas
last meeting.
pajamas, but
Hey.
I'll be here.
Yeah, so, I've been doing a lot of work, sort of figuring out the timeline and the things that need to happen to make this go forward. And there's a lot of pieces and a lot of paperwork. One of the things that came up first was, I needed to have Kristen check with our insurance company to make sure that if this was indeed transferred, that our insurance with the town holds. We are still waiting on that, But the best thing to do is simply to wait to transfer the property until the last moment, and that is also the standard way to do this. So you get to the point where you have the disposition agreement negotiated, and then you have the select board do that piece at that time rather than trying to do it now. We also don't want to be responsible for taking care of the property in the interim, and God forbid something didn't happen. The other piece is, what if everybody at Habitat dropped dead, and suddenly we don't have anybody coming in to have it, and we have this property.
Right.
So the best thing to do is really to wait until we have our developer in an agreement or ready to sign an agreement before we transfer the property over to the trust. And then I've sent you over an initial draft of what I think the RFP looks like. So if there are comments on that, we won't do much tonight, but I wanted you to have it to look at. And
So that's much smaller than I expected. There are many fewer words, many fewer pages than I expected. Is that?
there will be like
I assume there'll be
there'll
some
be
some
extra things that go on there, but they're standard things.
Okay, so we are really working from a standard template here. And other than
Yeah,
like
and
the
I
piece
will
about the
have-
veterans preference and things,
Yeah,
I saw
and
that
I
you
will-
added that.
That will, when we're ready, that will go to legal. I will pass that through Kristen. I will pass that through legal. But I wanted to make sure there wasn't anything blindly obvious that I was missing before I start doing those steps, because it starts here. Starts here, goes to Kristen, goes to legal, comes back here. So take a look if there are any comments or that about what you think. If you think there's anything missing, we can address that at the next one, and then maybe on the 28th we game to approve,
We send it.
or even the 14th if that's possible. But yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to. Yeah, let's finish any draft on the 14th, then get it to legal and Kristen, and then come back, hopefully aim to come back on the 28th and approve it if nothing huge comes up. I also started drafting the historic preservation restriction. That is also a pretty straightforward thing. I'm still researching on how exactly that plays out, but
Do you have the one from Concord that they sent us?
I don't think I do.
I can forward that to you because
Yeah.
I mean a lot of it's pretty
But
boilerplate.
it's all very what I had looked very straightforward.
What I don't, that agreement is between the town and Habitat. And I don't know who it has to be. I don't know if we actually
It's
have the
the-
authority.
It's the historical commission. The town does it, and the historical commission sort of has a role in it, and yeah, they hold it, I believe, for the town or administer it for the town. But those are things I was looking into exactly how that process,
Okay,
and
yeah, let
I
me-
haven't finished. I was focusing mainly on the RFP, and it just really started looking at the historical piece.
I am, to that end, I am meeting with June on Friday or Monday
Okay.
to gather, to help make them feel included in
the
this
Legion?
process. I was,
Okay.
and yeah, in terms of getting, and making sure we've got information, because the information that's in like the 2023 town assets report,
The
right, that
facil-
describes
the
it,
facilities.
June looked at that and was like, this is so wrong. So a lot of, and particularly, they have like things like literally the date, like that the building was built, and like some, so I want to gather whatever information she's got and bring
Okay.
that back, so you have all of that.
Okay. If you want, I can also go with you. I'm at the historical commission on Friday morning.
Oh, there's a historical commission meeting on
At
Friday morning?
10, yeah.
Oh, of course, I'm not on the agenda.
No. I was just saying if you're meeting with her,
I have,
meet with her afterwards and I'll be there.
right,
whatever.
yeah, 1 o'clock, I think I suggested like 2 o'clock on Friday or 10 o'clock on Monday or whatever.
Okay.
'Cause So,
just let me know.
just
and I
right,
can-
just
I can
to
also-
keep them
Yeah.
in the loop.
I'm actually going for the clock. I'm working, I put in a CPA application to fix the clock on the First Parish Church, so that's,
That's a really exciting project.
it's a really cool project.
Let's send it to the right person, Lisa.
It's like
Wysocki.
Christmas, Legion Hall clocks, it's, yeah.
There we go. I just sent you,
The thing, awesome.
is
Um,
this Concord? Sorry, this is Franklin. But Old Colony Habitat for Humanity in the town of Franklin, Massachusetts, from 2024, filed in 2025.
So basically it's RFP, getting the historical restriction together. Then after the RFP process happens, we review the submissions, do interviews. Then once we choose the partner, we negotiate a disposition agreement. And then we start the property transfer sequence, which is really easy. That's just a select board vote, and then you file with the register of deeds, and then voila.
Just to back up a little bit, one piece I don't fully understand
Okay.
is the order of operations for the preservation restriction, because it has to be, at some point, it has to be approved by the
Mhm.
state, and I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
know that takes
where that
between 1 and 3
happens.
months.
Right, and I don't
and
know
I
if
think you
it's-
have to have the, probably it's around the time of the historic, or the disposition agreement, because you have to have your, development partner be part of that.
Right.
Do
So
we-
it's gotta be,
But I guess the question is, do we,
Do we have to own does the transfer have to have
yeah,
happened
these
for
all
that
of
to
those
happen
things are sort of going to happen,
at the same
at
At once.
the same time?
Okay.
yeah. In the very tight, these are gonna be a very, I think all those documents are gonna, I mean, they could potentially be signed the same.
And
Day.
we should
Day.
just expect, and Habitat would just work under the preservation restriction we develop, and at some point during that process, the state will approve it.
So it should be pretty more specific than I was thinking in the RFP, right?
Oh, yeah, it's much more specific. It
Not
is-
in the RFP,
like,
in
Well-
the historic restriction, but in
Yeah.
the RFP, it talks about having the historic
having a historic
restriction.
restriction, and the historic restriction
Restriction
itself
is
is like
those-
is like
True.
24 pages.
But
of-
wouldn't they, if they're bidding on it, wouldn't they need to know what the restrictions are?
It's
The detail?
general, it's,
Because
I think
wouldn't
it
that-
mentions exterior and doors and windows and,
Wouldn't that factor into
Don't
like,
remember.
their billing costs, their bidding, things like that?
Yeah.
De-letting,
I mean, are these questions that we have to be prepared to ask them too, like when we interview them?
I mean, they have been there
They've dealt with
multiple times.
Well, I know
Yeah.
Habitat has, but if we have
Well,
other
If it was somebody else,
applicants,
then
right.
we need to make it very
Yeah.
Yes,
clear and
yeah.
we
it's
may
very
want
clear.
we may want to make it more, because all this
There
does
is a
this says-
potential for another one, but they
Oh,
did
like
not call me back.
Oh, someone you actually
Um,
know of.
No, a resident, it's something for towers. It's a veterans organization who does something sort of similar. I did take a call from them, and they were gonna pass it on to their folks, and that was a couple weeks ago. I haven't heard
Oh, cool.
anything, but I will distribute, and we will distribute out the thing,
Yeah.
to our
there was a
contacts.
project in Holden, they just built a house for a veteran, maybe it was them,
It's something for towers.
towers.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name.
Yeah. Currently, the scope of work in the draft we have now just says preserve. It says rehabilitate or reconstruct, one bullet point, and then preserve exterior, preservation restriction. So
Yeah.
we can
Tunnels.
add. I think we can definitely be
I
more
think so.
specific
I mean,
there.
the clapboards were mentioned, but yet it needs de-letting, the roof line, the windows, those things were all very important in the promises we made.
Yeah.
But that can be added there, or I think Lauren was saying or is it more appropriate when they're being interviewed? But then they've already bid, so
Yeah.
they would need to know those details, I think, in
But
order
they
to
can
bid.
they can ask those if they have questions, they can certainly ask those questions.
Yeah, site visits are strongly
We-
encouraged, so they're gonna
and-
see it,
Yeah, and
we
we
hope.
can take them to the building and do what, yeah, if anybody comes in and wants the scoop, they will get it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be ad
And they
nauseam
are
document.
required to submit a historic plan as part of what we're asking for in their submission requirement, so. But it doesn't hurt to add a few more details in there just to remind people that actually we're serious about that piece of it. Oh, hard copy submission? Question mark?
Yeah.
Is that a state
I'm
requirement?
pretty sure it's that was based on, and those are questions I'll ask Kristen, but that was based on our previous RFPs that the town has issued, since they will be running that process out of that office. We don't run the process.
Right.
We provide the documents and they will post it and they will take the submissions in, and then we evaluate the submissions. But the select board office, the TA's office, is in charge of procurement for the town of Berlin.
Okay.
So that runs through that office. We don't collect things, we don't,
Right,
we don't do these things. Nor do we want to, because that makes sure there's never any question about how that process was run, because it will run like every other RFP process that runs through the community. The organization was Tunnels to Towers.
Tunnels to Towers.
Okay.
Yes. Tunnel to Towers Foundation. So,
Thank you.
and she had also reached out to the Gary Sinise Foundation, but they were not interested.
Which one?
Gary Sinise Foundation does something like that, but I think they do sort of larger scale things than our little. I suspect Tunnels to Towers I don't think they've done things here necessarily, was when I looked.
Mortgage-free homes for families of firefighters, police, and EMS who died in the line of duty, including 9/11 related illnesses.
Yeah, but look at
Who left behind
where
young
they've
children.
built. I don't think there's anything that, if I remember when I researched, there wasn't anything anywhere near here. I mean, I think it's a great organization, so I would certainly, and I think it'd be awesome if we had two to choose from.
They did a 5K in Boston. Did an event.
So they
I mean,
they
they're fundraising
oh, what
here,
are the
I'm
odds?
not
They
saying.
fundraised in Massachusetts.
Well, I mean, this would, I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I'm just
Right.
saying, I don't think they've done a build here.
Right.
And I think that would certainly play into a decision too, because building here is
They would have to demonstrate in their materials that they understood what they were getting into, just like these Ohio people.
Where is the RFP advertised?
It is, there's a central registry. It would probably go in the Clinton item. It would go up on our website. All the places that she posts RFPs. Like I said, that's another reason you go through there, because you say here, and then we also will put it out to like probably Metro West and MHP, and we'll send it over to Habitat. I'll send it over to Tunnels to Towers, and anywhere else that we think it belongs, we can certainly forward it to. But they're standard. It's a standard process.
Yeah, but there must be like bank foreclosures. There's like pages or places that those things live.
I think there is an actual, the main avenue is a central registry of some sort in Massachusetts that they go up on.
People that know the business.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yeah. So chances are there's others just kind of watching for stuff like that anyway.
And like I said, we do our due diligence of getting it out to our folks that we know have contacts in this sort of
Huh. Wow.
twice.
Two
twice.
blackouts tonight. Yikes.
Um,
This is a marathon.
One. They're currently building in
So-
Bedford, it looks
Oh,
like.
okay, so there is one.
It's not the list, it isn't alphabetical.
Okay.
It's an order of like most, and
'Cause
there's
I
one.
think, I feel like I was seeing like Florida and.
Because yeah, Florida, Illinois are much higher on the list, and Maine has 3, but there's one in Massachusetts is currently being built.
So yeah, I think it'd be awesome if we got 2 to choose from.
Yeah.
When do we talk about seed money or that type of thing, which,
They said that I looked at that after I put this together, but it's down. It's part of the disposition agreement, so it would be down in that sort of area. I can tell you that the research that I did, and I pulled up a bunch of communities. It is higher than
what we
we thought. It's more in the 75 to 100 or more. And there are reasons for that. If we were to build this on our own, it would be much more expensive than that.
And we have that though, right?
And we have that. But I'll
and
bring
that's
in
in addition to the land?
addition to the land.
That's way higher than I thought.
But I will provide you with all of that research when we have that on the agenda. Because if we were to do it, we would be putting in
All of the money.
500,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
And it's a one-time fee.
Yeah, for a historical restriction, for a permanent affordable, that's kind of the gist of the things. Okay, so I think that is all I have, unless folks have.
That's kind of like
This is
everything.
another reason to have more meetings, cause then they can
They
be
don't-
shorter.
Can I?
Cause all of a sudden we have lots of things going on. We went from
Which is
Nothing.
which is awesome. That's
is
I mean it's
awesome,
taken
yes.
us. We've had kind of a
But,
slow
yeah.
ramp up, and it's awesome.
And we'll get through this, and it will probably get city again. But for the next couple months, I think we're gonna
Be
have our
busy.
hands full.
Okay. I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Okay. And if there are questions you folks have about this stuff, send them to me personally, and I will make sure to look up answers for you for next time. About the timeline or about the RFP or anything. I